Oh, wow.
year.
Well, that's one.
Yeah, and so we'll have couple more planned for the fall semester after the summer break. So keep an eye out for that. So today I want to introduce Jack and Will from the Computer Science Department at UVA. They have some really interesting research going on and a really cool project. They are one of the 7 finalists in the DARPA Cyber Grand Challenge that will be taking place in August at the Hackathon
DEF CON
conference in Vegas. So really exciting. $2 million. I'll tell you all about it. It's really cool. And so I just want to give you a brief introduction of both of them. So Jack Davidson is Professor of Computer Science in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at the University of Virginia. He joined the faculty in 1981 after receiving his PhD in Computer Science from the University of Arizona. At UVA, he's led and is leading several projects that are focused on making software of all types, enterprise, embedded, mobile, and Internet of Things. And Will Hawkins is here as well, and he's a graduate student in the Department of Computer Science at UVA, and he is researching software security and reliability with Dr. Davidson. Will previously worked in IT for a United States Senator, a computer science at the United States Naval Research Laboratory, and a computer engineering and tech policy at New America, a DC-based think tank. So I'll let them take it over.
Oh, great.
Thanks so much for doing this for us.
Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate it. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and we're going to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to talk about kind of the landscape out there, although I'm sure a lot of you have seen, the news articles, but I'm going to show you, some more, I think, pretty interesting things. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the activities going on at UVA, both educational and research. The research stuff, I'll focus on what we're doing, and I'm kind of the warm-up band for Will, who's going to talk about that DARPA Cyber Grand Challenge, which we're very excited about. So, if you work in security, you have hacker names. I have 2 up there. I teach a class called Defense Against the Dark Arts, so I'm Dumbledore. But my other name is DRD. Some people say Dr. Davidson, it stands for, but the way you pronounce it is DRD. Okay, so that's my. Will is Boris, and I was going, Boris, and he said, he sent me a link to a James Bond movie. Which movie is it?
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye, and so you can go see who Boris is in GoldenEye. Okay, so just a little bit of terminology, because we'll be talking about this, in the talk. So malware is the term we use for kind of any kind of malicious software, and there's all kinds of malicious software out there. I mean, certainly we know about viruses, worms, spyware, keyloggers, or kind of specific things. A Trojan horse is a piece of software where the malicious person has made it look like something that's benign or useful, a screensaver or some app that you'd like to go get, and you download it, but inside it has some malware that carries out whatever mission they're interested in. It might contain a keylogger that's recording every stroke, keystroke that you're doing, so they get your bank accounts. It might contain adware that's tracking what you're doing at sites and that kind of thing, and sending it off to some firm, and again, they try to embed it in useful. One of the common ones, and actually my wife got this, was WeatherBug. She went to, she said, I really like the weather, and went and, Googled WeatherBug, and the site she went to was not the real WeatherBug site, and she downloaded it, and then all kinds of bad things, started happening. Phishing attack is, we've probably all gotten these emails, typically, I'm the poor widow, inherited all this money, need your help to transfer it to the United States. Just send me your bank account and, I'll share. So, typical thing there. There are another kind of attack called spear phishing attack, where it's much more targeted, where they know something about you. Maybe you're a member of an organization, maybe you've been traveling, and that kind of thing, and it's actually tailored specifically for you. And those are much harder to detect because they seem very realistic. I got one that said, "Oh, we found your lost luggage." And it just turned out that I actually had been traveling. And, and it said, "Oh, click here and we're going to arrange delivery." And now, fortunately, I hadn't lost my luggage, and that was kind of weird, so I was like, wait a minute, did I lose luggage? No, I didn't lose luggage. And also, it was like it was Atlanta, and I went, no, I didn't fly through Atlanta. And it was definitely when I went and Googled that this was a common spear phishing attack. They kind of knew you'd been traveling and targeting. So again, can be very, deceptive. A vulnerability, when we talk about vulnerabilities in this realm, we're talking about a flaw in software, and that flaw may be able to be exploited by an adversary, a bad criminal element, nation state, whoever. And so, and that's the other part, even though, there may be flaw, and we'll talk about this, is software is so complicated these days, it often will have flaws in them. I mean, it's almost inevitable. And then, the other piece of it is if there's a flaw, can you exploit it to, do whatever you want there. And then finally, the term backdoor is referring to software that once they attack your machine and have gained access, they often install another piece of software called backdoor that allows them to continually access your machine whenever they want to. And that gets kind of installed in there. So those are some of the terms that we talk about. So, everybody reads the news, hopefully, and sees these things. And we're just constantly now, I think, inundated. We just see story after story. I mean, so, here are some of the things that have happened over probably the last 2-3 years. Okay, so Sony, right? We all read about the Sony hack. I mean, they did this movie called The Interview, right? Kind of made, the North Korean guys look bad. Came out of Sony Pictures. North Korea has a great cyber offensive capability. They hacked Sony and basically almost destroyed the company, right? I mean, revealing these emails and that kind of thing, very, very damaging. Target, of course, lost, all these, credit card numbers, really bad for business. And again, all these things are typically exploiting some kind of vulnerability in the software that they're running, and then they gain information or whatever they want. Another one, health databases, insurance companies seem to be a big target. So, a lot of insurance companies have been attacked in the database. Here in Virginia, about 5 years ago, the public records for prescriptions was hacked, and the adversaries or the people that did it actually tried to do this thing called cyber hostage or cyber ransom, which we'll talk about there. And again, that made the news. Of course, the Ashley Madison thing was kind of interesting in the tabloid news because of what that site did and revealing names there. So it kind of runs the gamut here. This is kind of new, and again, people, a lot of this is seeing now in the news that this is typically done by cyber criminals. They're targeting small hospitals that maybe don't have sophisticated IT staff, protections in place. They go in, they use some vulnerability to break into the system, find some critical files, encrypt those using some kind of strong encryption thing that would be nearly impossible to break. And then they basically send a ransom demand. You want your data back, you have to pay up. Typically the way you pay is by some kind of Bitcoin transfer. And this is now, just hitting one after another. These guys typically, the criminal element, go after kind of what I'll call low-hanging fruit. And this is low-hanging fruit. These are, things, they've hit some like county office courthouses and encrypted the records of who owns property and then held those. And they set the ransom at such a price that it's probably just cheaper to pay the ransom and then try to figure out how to recover. Maybe they have backups, but maybe the backups don't go far enough back. So this is really new. And of course now okay, now it's our cars, right? This is the assistant attorney generals noting that by 2020, 75% of the cars will have connectivity. And what that means is if they're on the internet, they're subject to attack. And we've already seen demonstrations of attack against some of the Chrysler automobiles. There's a great 60 Minutes video showing Leslie Stahl in this car, and they're taking control of it. And I mean, she's like really freaking out because it's, imagine you're driving and you're turning the wheel and the car's going the other way, okay? Because they're, controlling it. So these are very, very scary things. Close to home, Will and I were just at a conference down in Oak Ridge, security, conference, and we had the opportunity to talk to the CISO there, the Chief Information Security Officer. And in 2011, Oak Ridge was hacked. Maybe it was 2014. Was hacked. It was a phishing attack, it turns out. So I mentioned that, and it just turned out that it was at the time that it was like a message. It looked like it was from Human Resources. People here at UVA, we've all gotten these too lately, the HR kind of message. But they were at the point where they were actually switching HR systems, and so it seemed very plausible to the person that it was, and they clicked on it, and that was it. They were into this one machine, they hopped to other machines, and then they spread throughout the lab. It was so bad that they couldn't contain it, and the only thing and they were losing, information. They could see the information going out back over the network, and the only thing they could do was basically they took the entire lab off the internet. They were down for 2 weeks, where they basically severed internet access because that was the only way they can contain it. So again, that's close home, getting a little bit closer to home. This one was interesting to me because if you kind of read the little thing here, this actually happened after there was a news article about my group where we had gotten an award from the Virginia Center for Innovative Technology because we developed some technology to protect web pages and that kind of thing, and we were we were patenting it and looking to commercialize it and that kind of thing. So these guys, I don't know, made them mad, I guess, and so then they hacked UVA, which really didn't have anything to do with me, and they put this up on the UVA web page, and so that was kind of interesting. And then more recently, we've seen this. This one, I guess, was I can't read the date there, but. Last year, I guess, and, hacked UVA. And again, here they were going after particular individuals. They wanted their emails. They were people who were doing, research about China and what was going on there. And so hacked that. And then, the last one was this one. Again, another phishing attack that hacked things. And this caused, basically the university, again, to take everything down for a couple of days, switch things and try to, straighten things out. Now, university, taking things down for 2 days, pretty irritating. Imagine, you're somebody like, Amazon or, a big mail order company or something like that, and you're down for 2 days. You're talking about losing, millions of dollars, in terms of revenue. And so it's bad. If you're talking about a mission critical system for the Defense Department, that would be totally, unacceptable, right? To be, down for a couple of days. So those are just kind of, things that, happened, and again, credit cards, health records. The other thing that is big now is what I call cyber espionage. And this is kind of interesting. I think, when you kind of, people did do this, put the two together. So the Office of Personnel Management was hacked. So this is the organization that keeps, everybody's record, who has clearance, what level of clearance they have, fingerprints, all those, things like that. And this was hacked, okay? 22 million people, right? Okay, bad, really bad, right? Okay, then they hacked United, got all their records. United's hub's Dulles, one of their big hubs. Guess who flies out of there to foreign countries? Well, people who are going, to do various missions and that kind of thing. You take the two together, it's not that hard. Oh, they have clearance, they're going here. Gee, wonder why they're going here. What are they doing there, right? A good way, if you're, foreign nation state and you're interested in this, a good way to get information. And there's almost no risk, right? What are we going to, it's hard with cyber attacks to do what they like to call the point of origin. Where did the attack really originate? And that's hard. So that's espionage. Of course, now we're moving into cyber war, right? And what's the distinction here? So typically the community has decided that it's war when there is what we call kinetic damage, physical damage. So like before, if you're stealing information, IP, that kind of thing, that's espionage. But if you're actually causing physical damage, then that would be, war. So Stuxnet was what some people down here called a precision-guided cyber munition. So just like a bomb, very targeted. And again, I think we've now basically admitted, yes, we did this along with the Israelis, introduced essentially, I'll call it a virus that infected these computers that were controlling the centrifuges that Iran was using to enrich uranium. And basically, very clever, right? What this virus did was it would make the centrifuges spin at a faster rate than they were designed to do, and which means does two things. It makes them break. The other thing is it makes the centrifugal process that they're using to do the separation not work, so you're not getting the yields that you need. And then what they would do, this virus would, in terms of the systems monitoring, it would tell everybody, the engineers there, yeah, everything's okay. It's, at 2,000 RPM, everything's nominal, that kind of thing. And basically tore these, centrifuges apart and, shut that down. As effective as, trying to hit it, with a bomb, but again, a lot less risk. So, so this is, now all these things, very serious. So this, out of the Wall Street Journal, President Obama has made cybersecurity a national priority, he's created this cybersecurity national action plan. There's been $19 billion allocated for it, and a big part of this is education and creating workforce. So hopefully this is a place where the university can help. Training people who can go, work in this space, I think is very important. So again, it's become a national, priority. So, okay, big problem, right? But what is the real problem here from a technical standpoint? So everything's software these days. Everything that we do, business, you go online banking system, your car, we're talking about the Internet of Things or the Internet of Everything is what I like to call it, because everything is going to be on the Internet. You saw the thing about 75% of the cars going to have connectivity. Your refrigerator, I don't know, maybe even your toaster. I don't know. It'll count how many slices of bread you used and then tell you you've got to go get another loaf of bread. So all these things are there. It's being built, these things, because they're being built by business, there's pressure for time to market. Even in the military, there's cost pressures. So we're using commercial off-the-shelf software, government off-the-shelf software. This often means we're using open source from other places that hasn't been properly vetted, essentially. Even if you're buying stuff from reputable vendors like Microsoft or IBM, they often outsource the development code. Can you trust that code? So we worry about kind of the insider planting code in there. But the other thing is these software systems are incredibly complex these days. I mean, you were talking about millions to hundreds of millions of lines of code, the complexity of these things, because we all want more functionality. I mean, I want my iPhone to be able to, I can talk to it now, so that more functionality, which means the number of lines of code, we call that KLOC, 1,000 lines of code, goes up. As that goes up, the number of bugs goes up. Some of those bugs are going to be just bugs that maybe make things break, but some of them are going to be what we call security critical bugs, vulnerabilities, and then that means the attacks go up. I mean, the problem is we can do testing and look for things, and certainly that happens, but again, because of the complexity of these things, again, pressure to get things to the market. I worked at Microsoft for a while, and one of the things, Microsoft's philosophy, this was back in 2001, was let's just get stuff to the market, capture market share, and even though we know that there's bugs in the software, because we want to be the first there, and if you can be the first in the market, you're going to capture, share, and so that was their strategy. And then we'll go back and fix things. It's really hard, though, to go back and fix things. So again, time to market often trumps security concerns. So that's kind of the technical problem, just the complexity of these systems and that kind of thing. But there are other issues. So we have determined attackers now. We talked about kind of the nation state attacker. I mean, these people have significant resources. They're highly capable, highly trained individuals. The Red Army has people who this is as we do as well. They're able to use sophisticated techniques. They have long-term interests. Sometimes we call this kind of an advanced persistent threat. They're not going in for that kind of low-hanging fruit. They have long-term interest, and so they may spend significant resources, time to break in. We fix bugs, but patching's slow and reactive. You only patch things when you find the bug, and so it doesn't deal with what we call zero-day attacks. And again, software is static. There's like everybody. You're running Windows, whatever version, Windows 10, and if you find somebody, bad guy, finds a bug, a security critical bug there, they can, attack all those machines. So it's kind of like now all those Windows 10 machines are kind of a sitting target. And the other thing, and this is I'm going to talk about from a research standpoint, is that basically what we have is a software monoculture. So in biology, Mother Nature's been very good about making sure we have genetic diversity, which means that, for certain diseases and pathogens and whatever, you're immune, and maybe somebody else is. And that's nature's way of protecting, a population, making sure a population doesn't go extinct. Unfortunately, in software, the kind of by purpose, it was much better from an economic and business standpoint to make everything the same. But the problem is when everything's the same, if there's a flaw, that means everything is vulnerable. So one of the things we're going to talk about is this notion of artificial diversity to protect software. So just, some fun thing is somebody some of the security researchers said, oh, this is great. What we're doing here is we're creating so many vulnerabilities. We're actually doing a denial of service attack on China because they can't train people fast enough to deal with all our vulnerabilities. So this was in the Onion, a kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. And if you read the thing, it talks about, yes, we can't keep up with the rate of vulnerabilities produced in U.S. software. There's just so many. We can't do it. I thought that was pretty funny. So let's talk about what we're doing at UVA. So we have a very strong cyber security group there, and in education. So one of the things we've tried to do is kind of across all our courses integrate security in those because there are aspects of security and everything. So we have an operating systems course, electronic commerce, web and mobile systems and so in each of those, although they're focused on those particular things, is work. Talk about security in there so that students are kind of seeing that it's a top number one issue, not kind of an afterthought. Oh, you build it and then you worry about security. You got to think about it from the get-go. The other thing is that we have some specialized courses that are in security, like foundations of cryptography. That's kind of one of the bread and butter pieces of security. The two in orange are classes I teach, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. You can see I like clever titles, so like digital secrets, threats and lies. What's that about? Maybe I'll take that class. Or defense against the dark arts, playing off the Harry Potter thing. And I have a lot of fun with that. I didn't bring my cape and my wand and my hat and my sorting hat, but I have all these props and we do all this kind of stuff. And then of course, just generic, computer security. So let me tell you a little bit about these classes. So digital secrets, threats, and lies, it's actually what I'll call almost like a non-technical. You didn't need any programming skills or anything. I designed this course to create what I'll call the literate public citizen. And again, you think about it these days, everything that you do, even if you're not in the, your mom and dad, your aunts and uncles, is using computer technology. And so you really, to be a literate public citizen, you need to understand how that works. At UVA, I think we believe that we train the future leaders of America. And these are the people that are going to be making decisions, policy decisions about this stuff. And so they really do need to have some technical understanding. So this course kind of looks at a whole bunch of different issues at a very kind of high, broad level, touching, not going deep. Just don't have time. But how does the internet work? I mean, you're Skyping somebody or doing this. I mean, do you what's the basics, stuff? How's this different from using the phone? Cryptography, like I said, it's kind of bread and butter. Understanding, that. I mean, how is it that when I can send my credit card to Amazon that I know that somebody, is sitting in the middle, the man in the middle attack is not getting my credit card? Social engineering, those phishing attacks and that kind of thing. I mean, they can be done electronically, but they're done by phone and that kind of thing. Malware, spyware, software vulnerabilities, all the things we've talked about. Electronic voting, is that something, understanding that. Privacy. It's amazing to me, I mean, I have 2 kids, how much information about themselves they put online. I mean, it's just, I'm like, really? You want people to know that? Why, Dad? That's okay, and we've talked about, cyber terrorism and, and again, computer forensics. So we kind of look at, all of those things. So it's a fun class because you get to touch on a lot of, different things and hear what, the young people think about these things. The other reason I designed this course and taught it was I hope to use it as kind of a bait, if you will. It's like, oh, look, isn't this cool? So this is like typically a first or second year would take this class is like, oh, now, yeah, I really want to do computer science. This is, really cool. And it actually has been fairly effective at that, getting people thinking, wow, this is pretty cool stuff and, fascinating. And then the other course that I talked about is Defense Against the Dark Arts. This is like a third or fourth year course, and it really does go in depth and looking at software vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and that kind of thing. And the kind of the interesting aspect of this class, which at the time I started, a little bit controversial, it actually teaches both sides. It teaches offense and defense. And when people first started doing this, there was a lot of pushback. It was like, oh, you're teaching them how to hack. That's bad. You shouldn't be teaching. But the problem is that you have to understand how these attacks work in order to be able to defend against them. And the only way you can understand them is really, to try things out and actually kind of hands-on. So there is that aspect to it. We tightly control things so that things can't escape, kind of like, out of the lab and that kind of thing. And they're, in some sense, weakened viruses and that kind of thing. But I, really do feel strongly you got to look at, both sides to be effective at defense. And we do the Harry Potter thing because I love that. And so, when we're doing assignments, they're named after spells and curses and that kind of thing, Alhamora and, that kind of thing. And then at the end, we actually have, and this is going to lead into Will's thing, some hacking competitions where they actually compete. I call it the Wizards Cup, named after the Tri-Wizards tournament, if you're a Harry Potter fans, and we have a competition, and there's actually a cup that they, the winner, wins there, and we have a lot of fun. They really, enjoy that aspect of the class and kind of the competition. Again, it makes it fun. It's a friendly competition. You're not really competing against each other. It's like who can complete these certain challenges in a set amount of time, and the person who does it the quickest wins. But the goal is everybody, if they want to get their ordinary wizarding license, which I hand out at the end of the class, they have to complete those challenges. So Crystal is one of my students from when this is April 2013. So see, I've been teaching this for a while, and I'm told that these certificates are highly prized. I think they are because lots of times when the day that I give them out, it's the end of the semester, fourth year spring, a lot of students are like, oh, sleeping in and whatever, and then they like, oh, Dr. D, I wasn't there to give my certificate. I really want my certificate. So they seem to like that. Okay. Now, research, like I said, and this is only my research. There's a lot of other research going on at UVA in cybersecurity across departments. So one of our projects we call Double Helix. It's called Double Helix because we had another project earlier that was called Helix. And then, and that was actually also funded by DARPA and the Air Force. And then DARPA had a new program called CFAR, Cyber Fault Tolerant Attack and Recovery, and we were like, oh, this is perfect for what, kind of taking what we'd been doing and moving it on to the kind of the next level. So we called it, Double Helix. And the goal here is to build an architecture where you can run what, call mission critical software. So this is software that the, DoD absolutely depends on, to carry out their mission. So imagine, maybe you've seen pictures of these, of an air operations center where basically there's combat missions being fought, coordinating with aircraft, ships, troops on the ground, that kind of thing. There's software, that does this. And that's actually, if that software goes down, kind of like the commanders are blind, right? So that's an example. Another example of software we're working with, something called the Global Command and Control System, GCCS. GEX is what they typically refer. And again, it's if you've ever seen like some movie where you see these maps and it's showing what's going on in the world, the threats and ships and that kind of thing. That's what that software does. Again, used across the services. And what we're doing here is we're using artificial diversity, I mentioned that, to basically create systems that are impervious to attack. And here, what we're doing is we're taking this software and we're creating multiple versions of it and running it in parallel. And the idea is that if an attack comes in, one of these versions might be susceptible to that vulnerability, but if we've done our diversity right, the other ones won't. So we have redundancy happening, and we're keeping these versions in sync. And so if an attack comes in, yes, this one might fail because that was the one that the adversary analyzed. They figured out an attack that worked against this one, but it won't work against the other ones. And so what happens is we quickly kill that one. We'll spin up a new one, and hopefully what we do is we've learned, because we capture what the attacker did, and we analyze what they do, what were they going after? Oh, maybe they discovered a vulnerability we didn't, and we quickly repair it and spin up a new one that presumably would be immune against that. Okay, so that's kind of the basic idea here is to do that. We're just now finishing phase one. In fact, end of April, Will and our group are going up there. Will has done, he's not going to get to talk about this, but done this dynamite demonstration, that we think is going to just wow the DARPA program managers. And so we're excited about that. The other thing here that's unique about this project is lots of things you do in security, people go, well, how secure is that? And people wave their hands and argue and kind of say, well, but look, you can't, we think it'll prevent this. Here, if we do things right, we can actually prove, formal proof, that the system is impervious to certain common classes of attack. So that's kind of another unique aspect of that. Okay, so now with that, I'm going to turn things over to the main act, really, Will. And so this is the Cyber Grand Challenge, which competition for fame, glory, and $2 million here. And so here's kind of the team down in our machine room, and that's the the machine that we used for the qualifying event there, and the team there. And you can see Will over there smiling. So, Will?
You get your cape on and
yeah, so I'm Dumbledore there too.
So thank you very much. It was interesting because earlier in the presentation, Dr. Davidson said, "Oh, I'm like the warm-up band," and it's a little bit awkward to hear it put that way because I'm definitely the student, and not only am I the student, I'm one of the more recent people to join the team, the Cyber Grand Challenge team. In fact, sort of the big takeaway on this slide is down here at the bottom where we are one of the only 7 teams left. And to be perfectly honest with you, I really can't take much credit for that because I joined the team after that happened. So somebody came up to me, there was a press release that went out that said, oh, congratulations to UVA, you made it this far. And somebody came up to me and said, well, do I owe you some congratulations as well for the accomplishment? That I had only the very most tangential of, relationship to the team up to this point. And he said, well, then I wish you only the most tangential of congratulations I can possibly give you. So I said, well, thanks. So anyway, this is just outlining a little bit of what I'm going to talk about next. And I'm going to talk specifically about the game, about the Grand Challenge, and what it means to compete in the game, and what it means for UVA to participate in the game as well. So let me just take another step back before I move on and reintroduce myself. I'm Boris, as you all know from earlier, And I think rule number one of having a hacker name is you're never supposed to put your real name next to your hacker name. So now I've got to have a whole new hacker name. But any of you who have seen the movie GoldenEye will know how awkward I must have been in high school when all I wanted to look like was Boris from the movie. And that's not a popular look for a 9th grader in high school, by the way. I still, much to the chagrin of my current roommate and former roommate, still attempt to twirl my pencil like the character did.
He's very good at this.
And I haven't gotten any better.
No, but you're good at it.
And it flies all over the place. And anyway, so thank you for letting me come talk to you guys for a few minutes about the competition. The Cyber Grand Challenge is an example of an inducement prize competition. And this is not a new thing. In fact, there are several examples of these, and I'm going to talk about those in just a second. But the idea of an inducement prize competition is you have an organization that wants to accomplish a task, a technical task, and they want to do it in a way that is not a traditional contracting gig. So they have a technical task, and they could contract it out to a firm to do it. They could hire people to do it, but it would be very expensive and time consuming. So instead what they do is they put up what turns out to be a relatively small amount of money, and they induce other people, teams, to compete with one another to get them to accomplish their goal for them. So there's a huge amount of leverage going on here. And one of the earliest and most famous examples of this is what they called the X Prize. And now it's been renamed as the Ansari X Prize. But the idea was you can win, listen to these numbers, you can win $10 million if you fly a manned spacecraft 100 kilometers above the Earth, bring it back down, because we have a person in there, and manned is an odd term, I apologize, a human-guided ship 100 kilometers above the Earth, bring it back down, do it again within the span of 2 weeks. $10 million, that's what you get. In 2004, Spaceship One was able to accomplish this task. To win, there were 26 entrants that combined spent $100 million to win $10 million. And now that company is partnering with Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic for the burgeoning space tourism industry that people say will be worth over $2 billion. I mean, the industry right now is worth $2 billion, has a market of $2 billion, and that's today, and no one's gone to space yet. So, in fact, it has a huge societal impact too, because I have gone to the Air and Space Museum just to see Spaceship One hanging there. So you can see, if you go to Air and Space Museum, Smithsonian in downtown DC, you can actually see the winner. Now, this isn't even DARPA's first inducement prize competition. In fact, their first one was over 10 years ago, where they were trying to spur innovation in autonomous vehicles. And if you think about 12 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, somebody said to you, your car would be driving itself places, I thought, that's not possible. That's just not going to happen. But 12 years later, no one really bats an eye when there's a new software upgrade for the Tesla that enables autonomous driving mode. And quite frankly, it's all because of this grand challenge. The grand challenge that they were putting up was $1 million to drive 7 miles in 2004, 2005. Turns out nobody was able to do that. The ultimate winner, the first winner of this, won $2 million to drive 130 miles. 5 teams did it, but Stanley here from Stanford was the first one to do it. They did it the fastest. And again, they're on display in the Smithsonian as well. Turns out that industry, as you may know, the Boston Consulting Group says by 2025, that'll be $42 billion. So DARPA spent $3 million, well, $1 million of which wasn't even claimed, to spur an industry that was $42 billion. So, what exactly is this inducement prize competition, the Cyber Grand Challenge? According to DARPA, their official marketing material, this is the world's first all-machine hacking tournament. And you may think, well, how do you have a hacking tournament? And how common are they? Well, this is something I didn't really know. They're actually very common. And they're a way for human hackers to get together and compete against one another in a non-destructive way and prove their mettle to one another. The hacking culture is a lot about bragging rights. So we tend not to do things for the money, but as Dr. Davidson said, we do things for the certificate, right? I know I was a TA for his Defense Against the Dark Arts class. There was nothing that people wanted more than to be able to either get it to work or to get the trinket at the end. I mean, they love that. It's great. If I'll brag, I did it faster than you, or I understand it better than you. It's a lot of fun. So the way that they set these tournaments up is they're modeled after the childhood game of capture the flag. Raise your hands, capture the flag, physical education class, good, okay. So I have this wonderful little clip art here of how you play capture the flag. And the idea is there's two teams competing against one another, and your goal as team A is to protect your flag or capture the other team's flag, team B. So in this case, the teams of hackers would actually compete to defend their own flags and steal the competitors' flags. Just like in real life, this is exactly what they want to do. Defend and steal, defend and steal. Well, in this case, in the virtual game, the flags are actually secrets hidden in software. The way you get the secret out of the software is to expose some vulnerability in the software. You can't get the secret out of it just by doing the normal operation. So let's say the secret is hidden in Word. You can't go file, open, secret, get the secret and move on. It's hidden somewhere, either in a vulnerability or a special set of actions, but it's actually seeded. These flaws are seeded, and by that we mean there's a referee for the game who has gone in and put a flaw into the software so that the referee is able to say, oh yeah, this team did go in here, they did steal this secret, and they were able to bring it out. So these competitions are held a lot of times along with educational security conferences. And for Cyber Grand Challenge, that's actually no different. The Cyber Grand Challenge will be held at DEF CON, which is one of the largest hacker conferences in the world. And the idea with these hacker conferences are much like any industry conference. You have people selling tools, you have people giving information, giving speeches, presenting that sort of information in an educational forum. So, how is CGC different than any of these other hacker competitions that we call Capture the Flag? Well, again, from the DARPA material, the Cyber Grand Challenge seeks to someday make software safety the expert domain of machines. So in a traditional Capture the Flag tournament, again, the humans are competing. If you can imagine this, imagine a team of hackers sitting around a circular desk, all typing furiously at their computers. It's not that far off. It's a very team-oriented sport, and it is a sport. We have a member of our group who's very active in this community, and it's very interactive, highly social, really, really, really neat stuff. But in this case, we aren't having humans compete. We're having autonomous reasoning systems compete. Our team name is MegaTechX. I'd like to pronounce it as Mega Technicians. I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce it, but in my head I add an extra N to get technicians. But in this case, it isn't even Mega Technicians that are going to compete in this game. It's our Stanley the robot that's actually going to be competing, and we call it Xandra, Xandra. So that's our cyber reasoning system, and that is what is going to play the game. So the Mega Technicians will be there in Las Vegas, I think. I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully we'll be invited, but certainly our entrant will be invited. Xandra will be invited, and we'll be representing the University of Virginia. So again, the goal of the Grand Challenge is to make software safety the expert domain of machines. And with this $2 million prize, the goal is to incentivize the development of autonomous offensive and defensive hacking tools. So on the offensive side, we want to exploit the vulnerability that's in the software and steal the secret, steal the flag. And on the defensive side, we want to keep the secret safe. And our cyber reasoning system is able to do both. It can do the offensive and the defensive. So it seems a far cry from walking around or running around in the gym or at night. I used to love playing Capture the Flag at night. I think it was called Ghosts. I think that was the name of the game. It was great. I loved it. I don't know, the darkness added something to it. But so it seems a far cry from Capture the Flag in real life, in the physical world, to what software vulnerability would look like on the internet today. But what's really interesting is that it does very well approximate the back and forth between security professionals and adversaries who protect and exploit real-life vulnerable software. So Dr. Davidson asked earlier who has gotten some of these emails purporting to be from a friend of theirs saying, I've got this, I've got this presentation and I'm giving it in 10 minutes, but oh gosh, PowerPoint's blowing up on my computer. Can you open it and convert it to a Word document? I mean, I get those sort of all the time. So that's an example of what we call a local attack. Excuse me. And so what I wanted to do was just give a sense of exactly how a real life local attack would approximate a game entrant in this Cyber Grand Challenge, and then how that approximates into this sort of metaphor of capture the flag. So we have our adversary over here, and the adversary looks very menacing, but doesn't necessarily need to be, as we all know. Maybe Dr. Davidson is our adversary here, so he looks certainly menacing. But the idea is that as a user at my computer, I'm running a word processor, let's say, and that word processor has some vulnerability in it. My colleague, or my purported colleague, sends me an infected file and asks me to open it. Okay, so I open the file, boom, that's it. The vulnerability is taken advantage of, and now I have a piece of malware on my computer. That malware could really do anything to my computer, but one of the things that malware likes to do, or can do, is extract information off of your computer. Maybe some keystrokes, maybe your passwords, they're stored in a file, away you go. So now we found the seed, or we found the secret, right? By finding the secret, we've captured the flag, and in the game, that would earn us an offensive point. So if Xandra were able to do that, we would earn an offensive point. On the flip side, if we take our word processor and Xandra protects it in such a way that that malicious file is rejected and the secret is protected, we would earn a defensive point. That would be, in the capture the flag sense, that would be the equivalent of protecting our flag and repelling someone coming over from the alternate team to get it. Does that seem reasonable? Does everybody understand how the capture the flag would approximate a local attack? Then there are these sort of what I like to call remote attacks. Who's ever gotten an email from a website saying, you might want to log in really quickly and change your password? By the way, don't just change your password on my site, change it everywhere, because you might have used it on another site and now we don't know who's got it, and on and on and on. I know I personally have been a victim of one of the attacks that Dr. Davidson mentioned earlier. I had to submit paperwork to OPM a long time ago for whatever reason. And most of my life history, or all of it that I could fit on 20 pages of paper, is now in someone else's hands. I think in exchange I got a year of credit monitoring. So thank you for that, whoever was responsible for it. But the idea with a remote attack is that, again, we have our adversary, and they're going to craft some sort of malicious request. So let's say I want to go to Google. The malicious request might be a special search query. It might be some special parameter that I put in. But the idea is that the web server itself is vulnerable to some attack. This malicious request goes out to the web server, downloads some data that it shouldn't have access to. Boom, the secret is gone. The flag is captured, in the nomenclature of the capture the flag game. And then the offensive point would be scored by Xandra at that point. Again, the flip side of that is our cyber reasoning system, Xandra, has protected your web server for you. The attacker comes in, asks for the malicious file, no dice, secret protected, no flag captured, and away we go. So just a real quick audience interaction here. If you were playing capture the flag and you wanted to go to the extra level of protecting your flag, what's something that you could do to keep the other team guessing? Yes, you can move the flag. That's very good. And one of the things that Dr. Davidson talked about earlier is this variant system, where you've got different variations of the software, and that's the equivalent of moving the flag. You've got multiple copies of the software running at the same time. One of them has the flag over here, and the other one has the flag over here. When the attacker is attacking that software, they don't know which version they're interacting with, and the flag is now in different spots. So we have more chances to protect the software. Anything else? Disguising the flag, very good. That's another sort of metaphor for that. Give me one more. I'll give you one more chance to get the very specific one that I'm thinking about that you have no reason to guess.
Decoy?
Yes, that's almost exactly the right word. So the one I was thinking of was just sort of to basically take the flag and hide it. Yeah, turn your back, not let the other team know where it is. So if you go back to our green grass dialogue there, maybe you put it behind the rock or you stick it in your pants pocket so nobody knows where it is. The problem with that tactic in this game, in the Cyber Grand Challenge game, or really in any software protection game, is that you've now lost the ability for a legitimate user to use the service. So again, this is going back to Will's early days of geekdom. In the late 80s, I was in 3rd grade, and there was a rumor that there was going to be this huge virus that went out on the internet. Well, there wasn't an internet then. There were token ring networks in my elementary school, in my grade school with the IBM PC, and I ran furiously. My mom taught at the school, so this wasn't as awkward as it sounds now, but I ran to the librarian and I said, we have to do something. Like, this is going to be a big deal. Our IBM PCs cannot be offline because of this vulnerability. So I said, not only do we need to turn them off and disconnect them from the local network, we need to physically unplug them from the power, because I was so convinced that the viruses could go through the electricity that I wanted to see the other end of the cord that wasn't connected, because clearly nothing can jump through the air, which in today's world, that's not even the case. Things do bridge the air gap. Anyway, but in that point, the adversary already won. They already won. They didn't even have to do anything. They just scared you enough. Think about LinkedIn or Amazon taking themselves offline and saying, well, we're better protected. Sure, the old adage applies. What's the best way to stay protected from a hacker? Don't connect your computer to the internet. But then you don't get the advantage of the internet. So in the CTF game with Cyber Grand Challenge, we have a third way to earn points, and that's by availability. So just by quick example, I've pretty much given you everything about this, but if you break the software when you're applying your protections, you will lose a point for that as well. So essentially, as I've not so elegantly put into pictures, if you put the curtain in front of the system and don't let anyone come in, it's not so much hiding what's going on or putting a decoy or mixing and moving things around, which are perfectly legitimate defenses. This is almost like saying, I'm going to close the curtain, close the doors, nobody else is allowed in, you would lose an availability point. But if you can protect the software while keeping it accessible, away you go, and you win. So 3 ways to score points: offensive, defensive, and availability. we think, based on the fact that we've accomplished what we have so far, that we have a pretty good chance. In fact, we've all cashed our tickets to go to Vegas to watch the tournament unfold. The tournament will unfold without any human interaction. We're not allowed to touch the machines during the competition. So, I want to finish up with this. This is just going to be the latest example of humans watching computers do things on their own in a way that is like mass hysteria. So I'd like to call this the autonomous spectacle. And it started in the mid-90s with Deep Blue playing Gary Kasparov. I couldn't figure out exactly what channel it was on, but people kept referring to massive media coverage. I do know that in college, I ran home from my theory of computation class to watch Deep Jr. play the rematch on ESPN. Jeremy Schaap was doing play-by-play for any of you who know Jeremy Schaap. More recently, Watson was on Jeopardy, which was a really big deal. And then most recently, AlphaGo won against this incredibly hard challenge. And you were able to watch it live on YouTube. But on August 4th, you will be able to watch Xandra compete at DEF CON in the Cyber Grand Challenge in Las Vegas, Nevada. Last audience participation, what is the only way that you can get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, 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 right? Well, that's kind of the way it is for CGC in Las Vegas, except you also need a ticket. And this is our ticket. This is not made up. This is actually a ticket that we have. We don't physically possess it at this point, but this is a faithful replication of it. Not only is this our ticket to the Cyber Grand Challenge, this is actually part of my parents' tickets to see Britney Spears in Las Vegas. They'll be going out to watch that. And while the competition is happening, I might sneak off and watch Garth Brooks. So I think this is a pretty good ticket to have. That's an overview of the competition from my side, and in fact, that sort of wraps up the entire presentation. So we'll invite Dr. Davidson back up, I guess.
We're happy to, take questions. Any questions? Yeah.
I have a question about your other teams. Is everyone using the same strategy, or are other people using different strategies that you don't know what they're doing, or how does that work?
So, right, it's a great question. So, first thing is, because it is a competition, people are pretty closed mouth about what they're doing. Although we do know, we had the qualifying event, and as part of that qualifying event, at the end of it, DARPA gave every competitor everybody else's binaries that had been submitted as part of this. And so one of the things that we had a student do, Derek, was analyze those binaries, go in and do the reverse engineering process and look at them. So we do know some of the things that they're doing. And I assume they probably did the same thing, but in terms of, like exactly, the technologies and that kind of thing, and in particular strategy. I mean, so I've published papers, and so people can go read my papers. The guy at Carnegie Mellon who's there. I mean, in fact, I taught a class in the fall, and that's what we did is we read everybody's papers, right, so that we can understand. So we have a pretty good idea, but really in terms of the strategy of playing the game. So the interesting thing here about this game is. And again, if you're doing the kind of the normal human, there's, even though it's going to be machines, we're taking our domain expertise and we're basically, so I'll say teaching the machine, but we're, transferring that into the machine, and that part, people are being very closed mouth about exactly, how you're doing some of the things. And I wanted to publish a paper, and one of my research scientists, no, you can't, because they're really focused You know, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll wait. You know, well, does it really matter? $2 million? You can't. You wait.
He's our. I like to think of him, the person he's referring to, as our chief strategist. I mean, this is exactly what you're talking about. He is very focused not on just the technical aspects of it. That's one thing, but then you've got to optimize the game. I mean, you know, the game, you score points in a very particular way. And when is it best to do this? How long does it take to do that? You know, it's very, very interesting.
I mean, you know, I can't remember something, you know, Joan invited me to, and I was talking to. Again, it has this, you know, from the kind of military, you know, aspect. They call it situational awareness. You basically have to know what the other competitors are doing and who's ahead, and do I spend my resources now? They're ahead. Let's go attack them. You know, that kind of thing. So it's very, you know, there's this strategy piece, and that's the piece that is. I mean, again, we've had, you know, these technologies about finding, but that putting that together into this AI, artificial intelligence, and you know how we're, you know, doing that in our strategy. Yeah, I mean, people are not, you know, not saying. We'll find out in August. Yeah, I think.
Will the competition be held on a closed network or on open internet?
No, it's going to be on a closed network. They've been that machine that I showed you, which is down in our basement, which we used for the qualifying event, was actually given to us by LinkedIn, and so the qualifying event. You know, we were able to do it. Although, again, DARPA was very concerned that, you know, that there might be kind of the you know, who's behind the curtain, you know, kind of like the Wizard of Oz. So at the end of the thing, they actually came on site, and we had to go down to the machine room, and they had a disc, and they said, okay, we want to see you put this disc in, and they wanted to see that it was, you know, nobody was interacting. So, you know, in Vegas, it's going to be a closed network, and again, you know, they even look in the machine for optical interconnects or, you know, radio transmitters, like, you know, you might be, you know, communicating not through a wire but through. So yeah, they're being very yeah.
It's interesting because, as I mentioned, a lot of times these competitions are held alongside the security conferences. And DEF CON is well known to be one of the most dangerous conferences to take your personal electronics to. Most people won't take laptops to the conference. They won't take cell phones. They won't use ATMs within blocks of the conference. So you've got basically this competition among hackers at a hacker conference, whose only goal, some of the hackers, is to get on the quote-unquote wall of fame, which shows, oh, here's the most embarrassing thing I pulled off of so-and-so's laptop. So the machines are going to be very tightly controlled because they don't want outside interference.
Every DEF CON and Black Hat I've been to, every one, the fire alarm goes off in the middle of the night because they hacked the alarm system. So you just know it's going to happen.
Yep.
The applicability, I mean, I know it's a stretch, but like underwriters' laboratories for you know, and the USP they do for drug. I would assume you ever see a day where a company submits their operating system or software to a hacker community or a base saying, if you can break this, we'll pay you $2 million, or test through it, or somewhere to, I know you said up front, the theory was just get it out there.
You can do the Pentagon, you know, Ash Carter just started a hacker competition. You can go on, I mean, I can give you the website, you want to do this, you can go sign up, you can hack, you know, you become one of their certified hackers, you find a vulnerability, you know, in their thing, you get, you know, money and that kind of thing. So they're already moving to that. I think what's going to, you know, in terms of kind of public policy and doing this, what's going to push, you know, and there are people that are advocating for this, is liability laws. And, you know, we see that in, you know, other industries, like, okay, if your product is flawed and it causes damage, you're liable. Right now, we don't have that in the software industry. Of course, the software industry is fighting it tooth and nail.
Sure they
Yeah,
are.
yeah, but that's what some people believe will have to happen. And if you imagine that, then the insurance, just like they do now, right? You want an insurance, on your business, so maybe they come in, they look at your business, they basically, do you have the right, if you're a liquor store, you got bars in the window, alarm systems, that kind of thing. So I think that's coming, down the road. But again, industry, is fighting it because they really want to just basically, as I said, it's time to market. And this is a real worry right now with kind of, like I'll say, the Internet of Things. They just want to, get stuff out there. The Nest thermostat, people have already, been hacking it and that kind of, thing. So, but I do think at some point there will be, and certainly in certain areas, the aerospace industry. The systems that are on, like the 787 and Airbus, go through very rigorous. I think FDA medical devices will be doing this, for medical devices. In fact, one of my colleagues, in the department, that's one of the things that he works on is, looking at, the design of those kinds of things and having an assurance argument that it's safe, to use. But here you're talking about human lives.
He actually just wrote a very interesting op-ed about whether or not software developers that write that kind of software should undergo the same sort of certification process that professional engineers undergo and carry the licenses and things like that. But in fact, what you mentioned earlier was sort of an underwriter's laboratory, and Dr. Davidson mentioned, has been prevalent for quite some time. Private companies will actually offer what they call bug bounties for people to find and submit bugs for their software. Google is very famous for this. And again, it's an inducement prize. They offer $20,000 to any individual who can show an exploit in their web browser, Chrome. Well, okay, one person finds an exploit, they pay them $20,000. You'd have had to have paid an engineer $150,000 a year to potentially find that flaw. And this could be a huge flaw that saves, that exposes people's passwords. And now their software looks better because they found it before a nefarious.
We hope the ones that find it want the 20 and not to go exploit it out.
And that's exactly what, yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Will and I were talking about there was just an article in the Post. This has to do with the FBI and the Apple thing. Well, who did they go to get in? They went to one of these hacker groups that had actually found the vulnerability, and they were there is a market for vulnerabilities, and these are so-called gray hat things because they're not white hat. So a white hat hacker would basically report it to the company, do the ethical thing, and hopefully the company. The black hat, of course, tries to use it to exploit, and then there's this kind of gray hat people that have actually turned it into a market of, we'll sell you, and they sell them to U.S. They sold this one to the FBI. That's how the FBI finally got into the thing. It was interesting. They were talking about, it was this Israeli company, but it turned out the FBI bought the vulnerability from this company and used it. That's crazy.
Two quick questions. In lay terms, why is it that if my email is attacked, I get an email that I have to download a PowerPoint or I have to respond or I have to do something? Why can't the hackers just send the email and that automatically corrupts my system? Or is that what a virus is, essentially?
So that's more what a worm is.
That's a worm.
A worm would do that. It would come in kind of, and without you having to do anything. But yeah, it turns out that what you're talking about actually used to happen a long time ago. That when an attachment would come in, that it would automatically run, and then it would and then and then it was like, well, that's really bad. So then they started putting in you have to click on it. The other thing is now you get warnings because when you kind of go to the attachment or the link, it'll actually give you some information because they used to hide, like there was a way of hiding the name so that it would look like a text file if you went, but it really wasn't a text file. It was a Visual Basic file that when you clicked on it, it actually ran, active, code. So that was a change that happened. This was back in the days of kind of the I love you, virus and things like that. It was interesting because that took down Ford Motor Company for a week.
Yeah. So the second question, in your world, do you study attacks on the power grid? And I say it in the context of, you mentioned that the fire alarm goes off because someone hacked into the computer, but if someone hacks into the power grid, the fire alarm's off, the heat's off, the water's off, everything, you're just totally decimated.
So yes,
Who studies that stuff?
Yeah, no, that's again one of the things that we're looking at. So those kinds of systems are called SCADA, supervisor control and data acquisition, kinds of things that control that kind of thing, the power grid. It's also kind of in the realm of what we call embedded systems. So there are these, systems out there controlling pumps and generators and switches and that kind of thing. And yes, those are similar kinds of, attacks that we look at. There are other kinds of attacks on the power system that kind of leverage the cyber attack, where you basically, so in a physical system, the other way to attack it is to take some action that makes it become unstable, right? And so you can imagine you could do that with the power grid, right? And if you can do that and make it get into, like, let's say some kind of oscillating state or something like that, there you need what I'll call the domain experts, that understand that. But often the kind of the start of that attack is, to get into the system and get privilege, and then you start manipulating in a way that physical, damage is done. And so there, you're talking about the people that, understand kind of, high voltage power systems, the behavior of transformers, how generators work, which is outside, our expertise, but that's where we work with other domain experts. So it really is, for these kinds of systems, collaborative stuff. And we're talking to people in the civil engineering department here at UVA that's, doing transportation systems and that kind of thing. So again, they're really worried about the, cyber attacks, but, you have to understand, how, the different traffic control systems work and all that. So there you need domain-specific knowledge.
Great. Oh, one more question.
Yeah, will Xandra leverage honeypots to introduce malware into attackers?
That's very good.
That's where I was going with the disguise.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Built into the framework of the competition is the ability to look at other people's traffic. And by that I mean other people's attack traffic. So if I'm the adversary in my graph and I'm trying to submit infected files, as a competitor in that, I can see, oh, Dr. Davidson is trying to use these strings to attack, and I can look at that. That could be turned into the ability, that could be used like a honeypot. But yes, that's a potential avenue of and honey, that's,
Right.
if I said any more,
Yeah.
our strategist would come out of the woodwork. He's like hiding somewhere in the roof, and he would just like drop down and be like, don't say anymore.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
Really, really cool.